Well, we've got breaking news that just came out. Clemson star receiver Justyn Ross has been announced by head coach Dabo Swinney as he's out for the 2020 season with a congenital fusion in his spine and neck. This is huge, huge news. Again, Max Chadwick, PJ Clark here on Boomer Bust. No Tate Sigurth. It's his 21st birthday, so we gave him the day off. But PJ, I mean, this is big, big news. Of course, before we start with the video, please like and subscribe to the channel. Turn on notifications. Follow our Twitter as well, at Boom or Bust Draft, for everything you need Boom or Bust related. And as I just mentioned, I mean, they just found this out. He was born with this fusion. They've never known about it until we got an X-ray. He's going to have surgery on Friday. Of course, our prayers go out to him. But we don't know, PJ, if he'll ever play football again. And just for some background on Ross, if you don't really know what he's done in his 2 years at Clemson, he was dominant as a true freshman. Led the Tigers with 1,000 yards receiving, 9 touchdowns. That's almost 22 yards per catch. And per my favorite PFF, he led the country with nearly 5 yards per route run. So on only 200 snaps, too. Ja'Marr Chase played 500 snaps. So if you double that, then all of a sudden he could have 2,000 yards receiving. So listen, dominant true freshman year, not as great as a sophomore. 66 catches, 865 yards, 8 touchdowns, more catches, but only 13 yards per catch compared to 22 the past year. And he would have been the top receiver now with T. Higgins gone. PJ, real quick, what did you like about Justyn Ross before this announcement as a prospect for this draft?
You just mentioned that the numbers went down, the receptions went up, but the yards and the yards per catch and even the touchdowns went down from 9 to 8. But as a sophomore, I thought he was way more technically sound. I thought he was better in his routes. He definitely had a better handle on what he was doing. You know, freshman year, he got in space. He burned by guys, and that's why he had so many yards per catch. But last year, he was running more sideline routes and just making these catches on the sideline that his footwork was so much better as a sophomore. This is obviously a ginormous loss for Clemson. A ginormous loss for Trevor Lawrence, which we'll get into in a little while. But, I mean, this year he was slated to pick up all of those T. Higgins catches, all of those T. Higgins yards, because Amari Rodgers is still going to play the slot. He was going to be the next man up. And for me, he was a first-round guy. He was my wide receiver 3 heading into the year. I mean, this is catastrophic, and we just have to hope he gets back on the field at some point.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I love Justyn Ross as a prospect. I thought he was a first or second round pick. Right now, he's the best big receiver. He's 6'4". A lot of the guys like Ja'Marr Chase and other guys like that and Rashad Bateman, they're kind of more smaller receivers and beat you inside like Rondale Moore. But he's a guy that he's a great big receiver. You throw it up, he's going to get it, man. He doesn't separate as well as the other guys. So I was really looking forward, though, to see him maybe become more of a separator this year as the number 1 guy at Clemson. Unfortunately, we can't see that. How does this impact, though, the Tigers, PJ?
I mean, I think the door is open for Ohio State now. If we're just talking the grand scheme of college football, Clemson should and probably, quite frankly, still will be the favorite. They'll be preseason number 1. But I think the door is open for Justin Fields to do what he couldn't get across the finish line last year, because you're bringing in 2 sophomores now to be your outside wide receivers at Clemson that did not get a lot of run last year. And that's something you got to be worried about. And as far as another Clemson thing, Travis Eitenne, he's going to have more than 37 catches this year. I can guarantee you that much, because now you're just kind of defaulting to getting the ball in your best player's hands no matter what, because there's quite honestly not much else you can do.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, this is probably wide receiver U when they lose their top receiver. I mean, he looked to be the next guy after Hopkins, Watkins, Mike Williams, Martavis Bryant, T. Higgins. Now, all of a sudden, Amari Rodgers is your top guy. And in 3 years, Amari Rodgers has 1,100 yards total. So, I mean, in just 2 years, Ross had 1,800 yards. So, look, Clemson's going to run a lot more. Travis Eitenne this year. He's probably the best running back in the country. He's going to pass to Etienne a lot more. Lawrence also. He's probably going to run a lot more as well this year. So, big loss. I just mentioned Trevor Lawrence, PJ. How do you think this impacts Trevor Lawrence both in college football this season and as a prospect?
In college football, I mean, he's gonna have to work harder. And if you want to play like the Trevor Lawrence Heisman narrative, we're off to a good start here, because losing your top receiver, you're going to get bonus points for whatever you're able to do without him. He's going to have to work harder. As you mentioned, Amari Rodgers is a slot receiver. He's not going to break things open like a T. Higgins or a Justyn Ross. So he's going to have to work harder. I expect him to go more on the ground, like you said, and he was great on the ground last year, so I don't think that's going to be a problem. I think Clemson is now a considerably worse team. But as a prospect, I'm not sure this affects him horribly that much. His numbers might be down. He might, struggle more just in terms of wide receiver drops and inexperience, but he's still going to be able to make all the same throws. And is he going to have the talent to maybe bail him out of a couple bad ones? Probably not. But he's still going to be Trevor Lawrence, and he's still going to be QB1 heading into the year, and I expect him to be QB1 heading out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, Trevor Lawrence right now is probably QB1 in both college football and for the NFL as a prospect. I really think Trevor Lawrence, this is going to impact him, like you just mentioned, in college football a lot. His numbers are going to be down. He's not going to look as good. You mentioned it. Ohio State, this opens the door for Ohio State to win a Natty. Also opens the door for Justin Fields to win a Heisman as well, because Trevor Lawrence is probably his main competition there. Lawrence is going to run a lot more, man. He's going to rely on Etienne and himself. They're going to run the ball a lot probably at Clemson this year. Now, as a prospect, I kind of am interested now to see what's going to happen. Can he elevate his receivers like great quarterbacks do? You see Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, Drew Brees constantly elevating their receivers to better than what they are. Can Trevor Lawrence do that? So it's kind of interesting to see now, can Trevor Lawrence elevate some other guys to step up and be better? That will show how good maybe of a prospect and a leader Trevor Lawrence is. And I just mentioned to PJ, who do you think steps up for Clemson this year now with Ross being out for the season?
I think the guy it's going to have to be is Frank Ladson, who wears number 2 for them. He only had 12 catches as a freshman. He's going to be a sophomore now, so much like the Justyn Ross, except for not 1,000 yards as a true freshman. But this guy had a 98 overall grade per 24/7's composite, 39th player in the class 2 years ago. So he's got the pedigree. And you just mentioned Clemson is wide receiver U. So this is a guy that they brought in and even got some playing time last year. So I expect him to be on the outside this year for them and kind of keep up with some of what they lost. And T. Higgins and Justyn Ross replacing both of them now.
Yeah, it's insane. Look, I think Amari Rodgers has to as a senior now. Amari Rodgers is their best returning receiver now with Ross being out for the season. I think he's got to step up in the slot. Also, Travis Eitenne, man. Travis Eitenne, they're going to give him so many carries. Etienne's probably looking at that decision to come back and be like, oh, boy, I'm going to have a lot of mileage on me when I go in the NFL. And also, I might be a little bit of a cop-out, but it's Lawrence, man. The team falls on Lawrence now. It's, you know what, man? Show us how good, how generational you are. He's going to have to run a lot more. He's going to have so much pressure with worse receivers now with his top guy being out. The time is now to show how good really is Trevor Lawrence, especially when all the cards are going against him right now. So can he elevate his receivers again like great quarterbacks do? Real quick, though, PJ, how does this impact Justyn Ross as an NFL prospect?
I mean, first we have to figure out if he's ever playing football again. I think that's the key, and it's kind of like a Tua situation, but at least we had a sample size on Tua, and we saw him play football after the injury, and it was fine. We don't even know if Justyn Ross, his career is in jeopardy. We don't know what's happening next. Dabo said that they expect him to be able to participate in workouts in January. He's got 2 years of eligibility left if he wants them, but he could pull a Mike Williams and just go to the draft and be hurt. And I mean, it worked for Mike Williams. He's a hell of a player, but I think it's a risk with the spine thing. You got to be able to see him on the field. I think the NFL prospects for Justyn Ross are off the table until we know anything else.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, right now, I mean, they're talking about it with a congenital fusion. They've never really seen anyone play with it before. So it's kind of going to be whether or not Ross can ever play again. Dabo even said, he's like, I don't even know if this kid will ever play again. He's going to be kind of like a coach for them this season. And obviously he's a great teammate, as Dabo said, but listen, unless he gets the green light, I mean, he looks almost undraftable right now, which is so awful to hear because he was a guy that a lot of people thought would be a first or second round pick. A lot of people were looking forward to him bouncing back after a sophomore slump, and now his season is over. We don't know if he's going to go back to Clemson or enter the draft, but if he's healthy, which we very much hope he is, he could be one of the best receivers in this draft. All right, that about do it. Awful news for Justyn Ross. And of course, our Trevor Lawrence video is coming out later on. We wanted to cover this because this is breaking news right now. It impacts Clemson, college football, Justyn Ross, Trevor Lawrence, impacts so many people. So of course, for PJ, I'm Max. Make sure you guys like and subscribe to our channel. Turn on notifications. Follow our Twitter at Boom or Bust Draft. And if you get a chance, wish our own Tate Sigworth a happy birthday as well, turning the big 2-1 right now. So for PJ Clark, I'm Max Chadwick. Have a good night.